Hello everybody and welcome back for another Tableau Tip Tuesday, the series where we take a look under the hood for a deep dive on certain Tableau functions. From beginner to expert, this is a great series for you to pick up some hidden gems to take your visualizations to a new level. So welcome one and all. I hope you guys are having a great day. I'm having a great day. Today we're going to go over data blending. Now data blending can seem tricky to a lot of people at first, so we wanted to clear all that up and show you that there's nothing to be afraid of as long as we have a few fundamentals under our belt. Now in order to understand blending, we're going to want to have a decent understanding of our join logics, and we also want to know the shortcomings of those joins. So if you wanted to pick that up from my video on joins, I would recommend watching that one before you watch this one. Now a blend is always going to mimic a left-hand join. So we have two very small data sets right here, and up on the top hand portion right here you can see that we have our left join logic. Over on the left side we have Amber Smith, Lucinda Owens, and Raul Mendez. And over on the right we have James Bland, Lucinda, and Raul. Now based on our left-hand join logic, we're going to miss out on our record of James Bland here because he doesn't exist in the left-hand table. And we're going to have two entries for Lucinda Owens for the two cities that she managed to get a parking ticket in. Now below here we have a data blend. Now we're going to lose some information, but let's discuss why we want to use these here. So it's the exact same data set, but you can see right here in these cells that we're going to get aggregated values, and we have a small asterisk that appears in that city column. Now if we look over at our results data set over on the right hand side, we can see that asterisk right here for city, indicating that there are actually two cities represented by this single cell of information. So if we know that we're going to lose information, why would we want to use data blends? Well, there's two main use cases for data blends. The first one is going to be performance. So based on our join logic over here, we can see that we're going to have repeated values wherever they're supposed to be. So for example, Lucinda Owens gets two different cells of information right there. Now in this small data set, that's not going to have any performance implication. But if you extrapolate this out to, a millions of rows data set, sometimes those repeated values can kind of increase the data sitting behind Tableau and thus decreasing performance. So that's one great use case right there. The second is that if we want to find out what goes into that asterisk right there, we can actually do a left join on sheet 1 and a right join on sheet 2. Now we know that if we go over to our data source tab and if we change our data model at all, so if I take this data set sales target and try and join it with my orders table, well, that's no problem right here. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Anytime you can use a data blend, a join is also possible. But we know that if we change this join logic in my data modeling tab, it's going to retroactively change all of the sheets that access this information. We're changing the pipeline of information that comes into Tableau. So whereas it is possible here, I cannot do a left join on sheet 1 and a right join on sheet 2 like I can with a data blend. And also if I scroll all the way over here to the right hand side, we can see based on the brown line going through the top of my fields here that this is coming from our sales target data set. And we can also see that whenever a field is referenced here, in this case I'm highlighting paper, we're going to have repeated values for every single time that record appears. Now for our small data set here, that's not going to have too much of a performance implication, but if you again extrapolate this out to several million rows, now that is all of a sudden going to increase the data by quite a bit, which is going to affect upload times, download times, interaction times, aggregations, all sorts of things like that. So we can do a left join on sheet 1 and a right join on sheet 2, and also we remove repeated values, which is going to improve our performance. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look here. So if we go over to a new sheet, we need to relate these two data sources somehow. Now we already discussed that we don't want to do that on our data source tab down in the bottom left, so instead we're going to go up to our data edit relationships tab. Now before we get started here, let's go ahead and start with our use case here. I'm sure some of you have already surmised that we have one data set here called sales target, and if I take a look at that, we can see it's nothing more than two columns here so that we can insert the column sales target, the measure sales target, into our global superstore data set up in the top left. So again, if we joined on this, we're going to have repeated values, so instead we're going to do a page level relationship here. Alright, so if I go up to our data and add a relationship here, we're going to go to a custom relationship here and we'll add the fields that we know need to be related. So I happen to know that it's category name with subcategory. So we'll go ahead and press OK and press OK. And now if we look up in my upper left hand corner, depending on which data source I grab from first, in this case I have sales target selected, and I'll drag my category name out there. And then if I look in the top left, we can see I have a blue check there indicating this is the primary data source. This is the driver of that left-hand join. Well, now if I go over to Global Superstore here, we can go ahead and we can put in our sales information, and it's going to pull through no problem. Now this is because we have a data blend. So up in the upper left, now we can see we have an orange check mark on my Global Superstore dataset indicating that it is the secondary in this related in this data blend right here. Alright, now just because seeing is believing, let's go ahead and reverse the order of that join. So this time I'm going to drag from my Global Superstore first our subcategory out, and now we can put our sales information in there. But using our data blend, we can toggle on over to our sales target right here, and we can add that sales target of information. Maybe we want to put it on detail right here, so we can right click and add a reference line for where each of those sales targets are. We can do any number of different methods of getting that in there, but don't you agree that that looks pretty nice right there? So now we have a visual indicator for when that sales target has been hit. Now it's important to note here that, remember, based on the left-hand join logic, we're going to lose certain pieces of information based on which is the driver of the left join. So for example, if I am in my Global Superstore dataset right here and I take out something like category and market, you can see that I can get those sales values in there no problem because my Global Superstore is my primary dataset. Now, if I make my sales target my primary data set, let's go to a new sheet here. We'll toggle down to our sales target data set. We drag our category name out. Well, now you can see that if I toggle back over to my Global Superstore and try and get market level information in there, we're just going to get an asterisk here because each of these categories has been sold in multiple markets. And based on the fact that sales target is my primary data source, again, always double checking that blue check in the top left-hand corner, that means we miss our market information. Now again, the beauty of a blend is we just need to reverse the primary data source in order to get a right join. So if I just drag from my Global Superstore first, we can see that that market level information is still in there. We just have to make sure that we get the correct data sources and fields pulled from the correct primary data source. Alright, and now if I press my View Data button, you can see that all the way over on the right hand side we don't have those repeated values for that sales target going down my columns repeated every single time it sees that subcategory name. And this will reduce the amount of data sitting behind Tableau. Alright, so hopefully that clears up blends for you guys. They seem a little bit tricky at first, but with a little bit of practice you can find that you can reduce the amount of data sitting behind Tableau by quite a large factor. Alright, that's all we have for you this time. Join us next week for another tip.